So Alexander loved this story so much that he kept it next to his pillow at night. And so part of what I want you to do in your scholar's notebook this week is I want you to put yourself in the place of Alexander the Great. You're a 20 to 30 something. You are conquering the world. You are a military commander, and you look back to this story as a source of it's the source of your learning, it's the source of your morality, and it's the source of your motivation and power. So if you were in the position of Alexander and you looked at book 22, what are your favorite lines? What are the lines that are going to be most important to you? Which part of this one book of the story are you going to really hold on to as most important and most valuable, do you think? Alexander saw himself as a new Achilles. He saw Achilles as a hero, as a model, as an exemplar of who he wanted to be and how he wanted to live. What is it about Achilles that's so special? In fact, it was so strong that later on, as Alexander pressed out, came out of Macedonia, he hit what now we would call Turkey, and pressed over towards Babylon, towards what would now be Iraq, the Persian Empire of Iraq and Iran. He was just incredibly effective, first at conquering and then at keeping control of this huge and very, very diverse part of population. And one of the things that made him so powerful at retaining power was in each of these towns, in each of these places, he installed Greeks, and he also installed Greek, an alphabetized written system. So as he moved around the Mediterranean, I wrote off my map, he didn't just conquer and get the treasure and value and wealth, but he also brought the Greek alphabet. So all of a sudden, he brought this ability, this alphabetization of the world, the ability to record, the ability to read and write. He ruled with literacy to people who did not have it before, and certainly didn't have as an effective a system as it before. So not only was he spreading his military might, but he was also spreading a regime, an administrative regime that was possible because counting could be written down, names could be written down, contracts could be written down and consulted. All of a sudden, the world of hearsay and memory and personhood could suddenly shift a little bit into the world of writing and reading and documentation. That was part of what brought the Alexandrian Empire so much power and efficiency and lasted for as long as it did. So Alexander read the Iliad to be a new Achilles. He read it, and like Achilles had Patroclus, and Alexander had Hephaestion, a male lover, partner, buddy, friend with whom the rule was possible. And he also was able to spread and conquer and keep together this, what became a very cosmopolitan cultural background. He both celebrated the cultures that he conquered. He didn't make everybody turn in. The Greeks were very haughty. The Greeks thought themselves better than the non-writing barbarians. But Alexander, as their leader, was much more tolerant of different customs, of different ways of being, of different life ways. But yet he taught and he brought the alphabet. So where does that leave us with the Iliad anyways? Where does it leave us with Alexander? Well, we have at least one example of a user The user is Alexander 400 years after it had already been in circulation. He used it as his, what did he use it for? Well, he used it as his primer, as he used it to learn how to read and write. He used it as his primary life source text. It was a foundational text for him, in that everything that he felt he needed to know about leadership, about emotion, about honor, about action, he could reference in the tales about negotiations. He could reference in the tales of this book. It taught him how to read and write. You became a foundational text for him. It became a source of emulation or a role model. And it was so important that as he was running naked with his best bud around those walls of Troy, he was reenacting. He wasn't magically transforming into Achilles, but he was claiming Achilles' power and success for himself. And he was doing it publicly in such a way that everybody who watched and saw that, they knew what he was doing as well, because they knew that story about Achilles. They knew about that road race. They said, "Wow, look at Alexander. He's our Achilles. He's the Achilles for our time, for our day. And we're going to follow him, and we're going to celebrate him as such." Who uses it? And then the other thing about the Iliad is that the Iliad carried literacy around the Mediterranean at this time. It carried alphabetization. It carried a writing system, the Koine Greek that became the common Greek, that no matter where you came from or what language you learned from your mother, you could learn this alphabet in order to function in this much bigger, much wider world and society. One of the great cities of antiquity in Egypt we know as Alexandria, and Alexander established it, and he established a library there, and every ship that came into the port had to bring any books to the library so they could copy them. So imagine the power not only of conquest and military might, but imagine the power of establishing a culture that so valued knowledge that reading and writing began to be collected for all, to have access. Not for all. It was very, very unique and elite, the people who had access to reading and writing at this time. But it was certainly valued and prized. Why do we have the Iliad? Well, we have the Iliad today because of readers like Alexander, who 400 years later said, it's a great book, and there's learning from my time, from the time of Achilles and Patroclus. I'm going to learn it as a foundational text. And of all the stories, we don't really have a great account of Alexander that holds a candle to the version of Achilles' exploits. We don't even know if Achilles was real, right? Achilles is a character that was told about from 1200, from 1000 BCE. He was a character. He was probably a man turned into a character, and in that character became a type that has been so useful and so powerful for years and years and years ahead. So, we have this story that was prized, that was reenacted, and that's deeply tied to alphabetization and literacy. And perhaps that's also one of the ways that it has survived. As a repository for the Greek alphabet, as one of the earliest texts we have of the Greek alphabet, the Iliad was taught hand in hand all through the Middle Ages as the very first cathedral schools grew, as those became the great universities of Oxford and Cambridge and Sorbonne, one of the things that people did in these universities was learn Greek. And they learned Greek partially through the Iliad as a text. So to read and write meant to read and write Greek for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And because these stories are tied, because this alphabet is tied to these stories got told and retold and retold and retold and retold. Because this alphabet was tied to these stories got told and told and told and retold. Now, does that mean I certainly can appreciate it? Alexander certainly made good use of it. It's about rage, and as a emotional primer, I'm interested. As a military war manual, I'm not. There's lots more to say about how it works by looking at more closely at scenes. What's it do? Oh my gosh, it spread the alphabet. That's a biggie. It spread the Greek alphabet. It spread the notion of reading and writing, of being able to pull out of a page magically a story and the sound from which it came. A huge, huge transforming moment in the history of humankind. The ability to look at a silent page and bring it to life with sound and reading. We take it for granted how miraculous the simple sounding out of an alphabet is. Menin, rage. O muse, let me sing of the rage of Achilles. Let me magically pull out of the page the sound, the sense, and the astonishing power of these words.